Okay, so I appreciate you being patient with me. So you know that the future is going to involve these third-party clouds, kind of whether we like it or not. The first thing I want to do with you guys tonight is to get you to go over to aws.amazon.com. We'll probably do this during a lab, so you can allow me to just kind of work a little bit. And I want to go into my management console, and I'm actually going to go to my phone, and I'm going to type in a quick security code. I'm using what's called a multi-factor authentication, or an MFA device. And those of you who play like big MMOs probably know what that is, where every time you log in you get a unique authentication token that you just kind of type in. Sorry, this code won't be good for you when you read this up. That's just a quick, very temporary code that will expire in a moment. So it gets in there and you realize, okay, this is Amazon Web Services. There's a lot going on here. This is what's called the Amazon Web Services Management Console. So what I want you to do is I want you to go over to S3. It stands for Scalable Storage Service. Basically, S3 are a bunch of Apache web servers that are sitting in the cloud. They're basically Linux instances that are running HTTP servers. And you can basically upload images or files or PDFs or movies or HTML files to these things that are called buckets. And a bucket is basically just a cluster of web servers that are sitting listening for HTTPS connections, and they will give you files over HTTP and HTTPS. Now what's cool about the bucket is that I used to use the bucket as a way to, as like kind of a database, and I found out, I actually thought that I was being cute when I was doing this. There was not very many very good scalable cloud databases on Amazon, so I had myself and a team build a series of file-based databases that were not SQL-based. What they would do is they would just write little files, they would read the file, and they would update and delete stuff inside of the file according to the needs of clients. And what happened is over time, Amazon developed very good NoSQL databases. They also developed a MySQL database service. But I had to kind of build my own database to manage the scalability needs of a messaging system. And it was really fun. It was just a great, exhilarating, high availability experience. I did feel a little bit silly when they finally came out with databases later because we had built all these services. But I felt okay because I heard Werner Vogels, who's one of the great kind of like father figures of IT right now. He's like this big Dutchman who was a PhD at Cornell. He was a professor at Cornell, and he was hired on to lead Amazon Web Services from the technical perspective. And he's one of these great, happy guys now who's this big, serious guy. But he has all these incredible ideas that he's made into reality. So he's a very happy person right now. But he went out and he was talking in a developer conference about S3, and he was talking about how folks at NASDAQ had built their own database to capture real-time pricing data from stocks as their prices changed, and that S3 provided the NASDAQ a perfect way to keep track of pricing data. And I thought, well, that's what we were trying to do. We were trying to build our own database, to have scalability. So a lot of those problems have been kind of solved. So now I think your generation, new students are really in a great position because frankly, you can use your Amazon service for a year without any charge. And even folks like me who have long since burned up my free tier, after you use it for a year for free, they kind of like, okay, now you have to start paying. I'll teach you how to use Amazon Web Services so that it will cost you a couple cents every month. Like I get a bill, even as a startup, I get a bill for 68 cents a month. And that's so much better than like billing a Linux instance that costs $50 a month. I used to spend $1,000 a month through Amazon because I would have to, buy up other servers, and now I spend 68 cents a month. So my thoughts are, everybody is going to want those economic advantages. One, I don't need the Linux servers. I can get direct access to the databases behind the cloud just by coding raw HTML right inside of my Amazon S3 bucket, because it's just transferring HTTP anyway. So what you're going to do is you're going to create a bucket. I'm going to say I want you to choose a region. Now, frankly, Oregon and US standard are going to be the cheap ones. You should do that. Northern California costs 3 times as much. I would love for you to make a bucket in Sao Paulo, but it's going to cost you because you should be doing it in Oregon, right? Oregon is cheap and organic, and they actually have a gigantic like smoke belching data center right by a huge like dam somewhere in the Oregon wilderness, where everybody wears big steel-toe boots and everything. It's a very organic setup. I'm sure they grow their own food there. So you should choose the Oregon data center. Don't set up logging, just create it. Okay, that's great. Yep, my sample bucket in Oregon. And so that's my sample bucket. Now you can kind of select on this, and you go to static website hosting, and you say, okay, I want that to be a website, and I'm going to make an index. It's called index.html. I'll put that in there. And I'll make an AIR file as well. And you can redirect this stuff, and you can work with the DNS. That will be for another time, because right now I just want you to make this bucket, and now you can sort of upload a static file that goes, and you can make a website this way. So let's try to make a quick little file on Eclipse. Well, what I'll say this, instead of doing that, you're going to make a quick HTML file, and then I want you to upload it, and I want you to see what happens. Does that make sense? And I think I could go ahead and quickly sculpt that, but that's what I want you to try to do. Because when you get into the root of this bucket, basically everything is going to appear. Now here's a website that I maintain. It's called Pass the Rock. I won't be doing any promotion of this business here. Try to avoid that. But what I would like to do is I would like to navigate here. Why can't I navigate down to the bottom of this? I have an index. I have an index file here. Hello, where would that go? Let's just kind of touch upon this. This is just a quick web page right here. I'm going to take a look at the properties. This is what I want to show you. Anyway, you'll see that this is a file within my bucket. And when I look at the properties of that thing, it actually gives me a viable URL that's out there on the internet. So if I were to click on that, it'll open up a new tab. And then this is that actual web page. So the quick way for you guys to get a quick, free hosted website that will cost you nothing for a year and that will cost you cents on the dollar thereafter is to do this. So already, thanks Amazon, that's awesome. So, if you were a startup, that's what you should do. You shouldn't make your own cloud. You shouldn't do that. You should be able to just make a cool website just on air. And you shouldn't get a public Linux server on a shared host. You shouldn't do that. That's hackable. You shouldn't get a $50, $60 server that supplies bandwidth to 1,500 users. You shouldn't do that, right? You should do this. Okay? Saving money is kind of an important ethic. But yeah, once you upload your HTML, you'll see that it actually resolves to a real place. And what I want to do is I want to quickly just break that down. And let me say that here's a real website. And it's going to be built up for mobile. And what it's doing is it's assisting very small local event promoters to get their word out there. And a lot of time it's with very interesting people. And so I want to stand behind those, those people out there. And the app is hosted here. And you're like, well, okay, passtherock.com, that's our root page. That's going to be located underneath our bucket right here. And I think it's just the projection of the page, the projection of this web page that's making it hard for me to scroll downward. Yeah, for whatever reason, I'm having trouble scrolling here, but Maybe I'll find out why that's happening. Of course, things will break when you're trying to do it on YouTube. But these are things that you can try. And when I want to upload stuff, I'll just go upload. And then I can also grab a tool like Cyberduck. Cyberduck is one of these wonderful, like, punk rock, free software that everybody uses. And I don't know if it's that secure, but what I do is I include my encryption keys inside of it, and I try to go at it that way. And what I do is I upload and I drop my work inside of here, and then I can upload it to AWS. And I have a way that I can program in my AWS right here. So there's actually ways to, there are ways to actually get file sync tools. Here, let's do a quick. There are excellent file synchronization tools. GoodSync is awesome. I've used them before. So if you have a lot of web pages, it's good to get a tool like this where you can drop all of your pages into GoodSync and then press go, and then GoodSync will throw all of your stuff into your bucket. Okay, so therein you already have something nice with Amazon. Now let me say this. You guys are students. I get that you're thrifty. That's great. You need to have a credit card in order to get an Amazon Web Services account. And if you follow my instructions, it will never be charged. Okay? I have had a very ambitious and enterprising young student not obey my instructions, and he was billed $266 for the first month, and he did this. Here, don't do this. But he went on over into their database. He said, RDS, Relational Database Service, I want that. Let's go on over here. That's awesome. Basically, it's MySQL. I mean, imagine drumming up, running a cloud of MySQL databases just on demand. Yeah, let's get started. Let's do that. Yeah, I want MySQL. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah, let's get that. Oh, no, Amazon Aurora, what's that? No, MySQL, let's go. Production, ho! Yeah, I don't even want to keep going. This poor guy, he came up to me, and he had a team member who was like this big guy. He was about 6'5". He's this big, he's a very nice guy, but he wrote me an email. He says, Mr. Bund, my credit card, I'm a working person, I have children, I'm a student. Unfortunately, during your class, Amazon has billed me $266, and I have no idea why. I need to meet you in your office and have a personal sit-down meeting. And I swear, I was just in adrenaline rush for the 3-day wait, or somebody emails you a scary email on Friday and is like, let's meet 8 a.m. Monday. And I was in there just like batting down the hatches, just like ready for whatever. And he was actually a really nice guy, but he's like, hey, how can we, what do you think? How can we manage? And what I did is I called Amazon, and they were like, oh yeah, duh, dumb kid. Yeah, it appears that somebody ran up an RDS instant on your account. Do you know how that happened? I was like, and I got very mad over the phone. I was like, they were not supposed to do that. And Amazon was thinking, well, probably. They probably didn't know that they would be billed. And this happens every day, all day long. So why don't we just wipe away those charges, and you just keep teaching those kids at Cal Poly to use Amazon Web Services. I said, and I was with this like 6'7" kid, this like ex-Navy SEAL. And I was like, thank you, Amazon. And luckily I had, Southern California, everybody was very nice. But it was scary. And I want to say that, look, if you don't do what I tell you, you may well be charged. Does that make sense? And you will pay that money. And then you will have to call up Amazon and say, can you please remove this charge? And they may do that. But instead, just work with your free tier. Just work with S3. Don't touch anything else. Okay? Eventually, you'll work with DynamoDB. You'll get your way. You'll get your sea legs on Dynamo. It's not trivial. You'll need to learn a few things. Thank God for YouTube. But there's a lot of toys in here. There's a lot of great stuff. Like, let me say this. You do not need virtual private networking. You do not need to make a cloud on Amazon that connects to your cloud in your dorm room. Trust me. There's other great stuff. You don't need workspaces. Basically, it's a shared file system. It's like a a virtual drive for your corporation and people can hook it up to their Windows. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. WorkDocs is Amazon is, it's like Google Drive, but Amazon. I mean, Amazon is like Microsoft. They do everything. Machine learning, yeah, you don't touch that button. Don't create a machine learning monster. The thing is this. If you create it, that's fine. Just cancel it. But this young man, this very fun-loving, great kid, but he just ran the instance for days and days and days. And he didn't know it was on, and they charge you by the hour. So, a big organization like New York Times, would use Amazon for the weekend to send them OCR copies of all the papers they've ever published, to be transferred over to the website. You go to New York Times, you can see every paper they've ever put out. They have an incredible web development, team at NYT. They spent $280 to get that done over the course of 2 days. So NYT, that's a lot of bandwidth, but they got it done. They could kind of rent the capacity that they needed. So there's that. Let me say this, SNS is a great service. Frankly, you probably can't do a mobile device company without SNS because SNS will send out notifications for you. And they'll send out little notifications to your Apple Cloud or your Baidu Cloud or your Google Cloud. SNS is important. So if you guys by the end of this class are putting together a static web page site on S3 that connects to DynamoDB and that you have some literacy on SNS, people will be wanting to talk to you about that because that's the teamwork skills that are necessary to get you involved in very real production websites, and increasingly so. So, I take your future very seriously, and so, the stuff that we're going to be doing is going to, it's going to contribute to an interesting web dev future for you. And if we do our stuff right, if I do my stuff right, we will convert you over to the dark side, and you will be a developer. You will be a Gordon Gekko, like greasy hair, like greed is good, kind of capitalist programmer person, which is an interesting new character in our culture. So yeah, so this will be this video, and we'll go next to a new video after this one. Thanks a lot. Oh, and press subscribe.